Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 2 of I Am series. As you have been used by now to see me with guests, and most of my guests, not most actually, all of my guests this season were ladies. Today I have a very special surprise for you, and my guest for you today is none other than Mr. Ali Sayed.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm very proud to take a woman's job today.
Oh my goodness.
That's what
Well,
that's
thank
what it
you.
feels like when you introduce it like this.
Really?
You're like, all of my guests have been ladies, but now,
If you haven't noticed, Ali is a comedian, just so you
I
know, right? And
I do
it comes
comedy.
with his
I'll tell
nature.
you, I'm very sensitive to this because I grew up with a lot of women, and like around like Women's Day or like Emirati Women's Day and whatever, you cannot imagine the number of requests I get to go and perform.
For women
Yeah,
on Women's Day.
on Women's Day. So because it's Women's Day, so we want a man's perspective. I'm like, actually, we don't. This is why we have
is
a
we?
Women's Day. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you'll be surprised, and again, you can't really decide who's doing what. But I'll get women who contact me as well. But maybe there was a meeting or a board or a boss behind it.
Okay.
Sometimes it is a woman's idea to say, I'm tired of listening to women. Let's get them, and I'm like, but it's Women's Day.
But men's perspective is always interesting for women.
I mean, it's better. I'm joking.
I don't know if I can
This is
take you
gonna cancel
seriously
me.
ever.
This is what's gonna happen.
Am
I'm
I
gonna
going to
cancel
take you
myself.
seriously at all?
Don't take me seriously ever.
Okay. You have a show called Cancelled,
I
right?
have a show called Cancelled Culture.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah,
it's
I've seen
about-
that show. I've seen
Yeah?
that show. It's very
Okay.
funny. Yeah. It's very funny. Ali, let me tell you a little bit about this podcast specifically because it's a bit different than maybe what you're used to. In this podcast, we actually speak about self-development and we speak about, the experiences that we go through in life that take us from point A to point B. And usually point A is where we have this, I don't like to call them traumatic experiences, but maybe lessons that we learn through life and how these lessons shape us to become the people that we are today. And I'm pretty sure every single one of us goes through these. Some of us go through these very willingly and in a very aware way. And a lot of us, most of us actually, go through this in a non-aware way. And then we get to a point where we see like, oof, what just happened here? We find ourselves in a completely different place without even recognizing what we've been through. But then we reach a point in our life where if we look back, we go like, I understand why this happened. Now I know, and it happened because now I am where I am today.
Right.
The reason I wanted to host you today actually is because I want to understand from your perspective, especially because you're a comedian. And I know, I have studied theater, by the way.
Okay.
So I know how difficult it is to stand on a stage and make people laugh. It's very easy to make people cry, because emotions usually just flow, right? When you're emotional and you want to cry, sometimes you can't even hold it back. But to laugh and make people laugh, it's actually an exercise. So I want to talk about it from this aspect, from this perspective. First of all, how you got here and what made you, were there any special experiences or lessons that you went through in your life that made you become the comedian that you are today?
Excellent questions. Thank you for stopping at 18.
You're welcome. You
I
have
will
18.
try to.
Yeah,
I will
well, you
try
have
to
the
answer.
time.
I'll tell you. Okay, first of all, I want to say this. I would like to sit here and pretend that my job is very difficult and to make people laugh is something that's difficult. But I think that's a myth, and that's
Really? Okay.
a problem in the way that we think.
Okay.
One of the most natural experiences is joy. One of the most natural reactions is laughter. People laugh when they're embarrassed. People laugh when they don't know how to react in the moment. They're like, I don't know what's happening. Everybody's looking at me. I'm going to laugh.
Yeah.
Right? People laugh very easily. You can make a baby who doesn't know your language yet laugh.
That's true.
And they're still figuring out why everything is just above them the whole time, and why people are just making sounds and touching them and poking them with fingers and putting their faces on their face. They're still trying to understand that, yet you can still make them laugh. It is one of the most natural things that we do, that we're capable of. However, we put a lot of pressure on good things.
Okay.
We put a lot of weight on good things because somehow we've convinced ourselves that it's easy to be in a bad place. It's easy to be in a wrong place. I don't know, like, at least my generation, at least, especially the music that we grew up with here. I want to say it's general Arabic music. It really made us depressed, and it really glorified depression.
I agree with you.
To a degree, like listening to this like sad song was the thing.
Yeah.
Like there's nowhere else in the world do like two people go up to each other and be like, hey, did you hear this really sad song? Yeah, let's listen to it in the car on the weekend.
Yeah. That's so true, actually. You think it's a societal thing that we go through here?
Absolutely. I'll tell you what it is. I think we're a victim of a gorgeous language. So when poetry is so good that it becomes music, because the best singers, that's what they were doing. Like Kadhim As-Sahr, he became really, pan-Arab famous because he went for Nizar Qabbani. He went for a real poet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the language is so gorgeous that we can write pain so beautifully. You cannot translate pain that like we write it into any other language.
I like that you say that, because I have to tell you one thing about this podcast is that it goes with the flow. And what you just said is very interesting, because you tackled several points. One of them is mindset, because we do have the mindset that, it's more comfortable to be uncomfortable.
Right.
Which is very, and I always say this, I think I mention it in every single episode, because I always ask all of my clients, how comfortable is your comfort zone? And then people start thinking, oh my God, this is like, man, I'm not comfortable. But why do I consider it comfortable? So that mindset of, you said that it's not that difficult to make people laugh, and it's really a mindset that we have, and it's a myth that, it's difficult for us to make people laugh. And how easy is it? But yeah, like you do this to a kid and they would just start laughing and they cannot stop.
They cannot stop.
Right? And then you mentioned something else as well, which is this mentality that we have around society in this region specifically, that victimhood, that we love living. Like we love the drama. We love the pain. I used to date one person in college time. He used to tell me, love is sweet because it's sour. And I'm like, okay.
Or we could be happy, bro.
Yeah, exactly. What's wrong with being happy?
Yeah, let's go to a theme park. Maybe.
Yeah.
Let's go to Malahi, whatever,
So tell me, have you been through those dramatic experiences to decide that eventually, or how did you discover that, no, I want to make people laugh?
So I'm going to tell you this in the most cliche kind of way, and then I'll explain myself.
Okay.
I didn't choose comedy.
It chose
Comedy
you.
chose me.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you why. This is the truest thing I've
Cheesy.
ever said. It's so cheesy, but I had to say it this way.
Tell me.
Because it was an accident.
Okay.
It was never meant to be. There were zero signs that I would ever be in this field or in this position in life.
Okay.
It took me a while to convince the people around me that I wasn't lying when I said I have a comedy show tonight that I'm performing in.
Okay.
And I said this to people who admired me
Okay.
to a degree, and I'm like, no, I'm doing a show. You should come. They're like, no, for real, what are you doing? Because I was an incredibly different person. I was a very different experience prior to comedy.
What were you?
I was goal oriented. I was going to do things differently than I had witnessed them growing up. So I wanted to be different. I wanted to be the difference maker, and I wanted to do it really quick. I wanted to be the youngest everything. I wanted to be the most everything.
Yeah.
Right? And growing up in a city like Dubai, that was easy because Dubai is like, oh yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
make the tallest tower. I'm like, bro, me too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be the biggest something.
Yeah.
Right? And it's this constant. That's what sort of moved me along, because of this like sort of crooked kind of way that I came up as well, which is what brought me into this character almost that I was playing, that I was going to be this corporate, one day it was going to be the CEO that's on the front page of all the magazines and the covers of all the magazines, sitting there with like big dollar signs and M's and B's next to the
Yeah.
numbers,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's what I was working towards, and I couldn't see anything else or any other lane.
Okay.
Right.
And then how did it turn from that to comedy?
I had a car accident. No.
Yeah, the comedian in you has to show up somehow.
It has to. I can't give straight answers. This is what happened. I knew I was really working hard. I was working in this wonderful company, which was my last job, run by these amazing people.
Okay.
Who they made us feel like we were part of the family. Every company says that we're family, whatever,
Yeah.
but they genuinely created that family feel. But I felt like I was working really hard to build somebody else's dream. And it was like 3 a.m. on one of those office nights, and I'm sitting down. I want to be clear. Nobody was asking me to work till 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
It was my choice.
They usually don't ask.
Right. But it also wasn't expected, right?
Yeah.
This was just me being me. Nobody else was working that late.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sitting down and I'm like, I'm working this hard to build somebody else's dream. What if I did it for me? What if I'm able to build my own dream? So I'm like, all right, what do I want to do? And at the time, it was early 2000s, we started this online magazine, a friend of mine and I, and it was so weird because nobody else was really doing it. So it was hard to explain what it was even, right? And we were this like 2-person small operation with a small camera,
Yeah.
and just a lot of BS.
Yeah.
Just us making phone calls and somehow interviewing celebrities and covering the film festivals and doing
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? That's what I want to do. That's the thing I want to do. Also, doing that, I started meeting a lot of like regional artists, like hip hop and whatever. So I was going to be a hip hop artist manager, and I was going to do this, and I was going to do that, and I was going to do all these events because I had all this experience in events.
Yeah.
So I tried to quit my job, and so the company, the family, wouldn't let me. And they're like, they offered me a few things. They gave me a lot of advice, yada, yada. And then I get to the president of the company, which is the owner of the company. And he's like, what's going on, man? You're like my kid.
Yeah.
Why do you want to leave? And I just started saying random things from my subconscious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think I was trying to say that I want to do comedy shows. But I never really meant that I was going to be a comedian. Or maybe I did. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I was a huge fan of comedy at the time. And I was just discovering stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
A few years prior, but I was really into that. So, he ended up saying, it's a horrible time to do it now, because I was banking on all my contacts. I'm like, I know all these people, through work and whatever. I'm going to get them to sponsor. At the time, it was healthy sponsorship sort of market.
Yeah.
So the year was 2008. And he was telling me it's a bad idea right now to start your own business. And I was like, no, I can do it.
Yeah.
So I quit my job, and so did everybody else, involuntarily. So I'm looking at everything. I'm like, hang on a second. I have zero contacts.
Yeah.
There's nothing happening right now because the whole world pretty much shut down.
Yeah.
And they ended up contacting me, the same company, and they're like, hey, were you serious about that comedy thing? I said, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe. They're like, so we want you, like, we're looking for a comedian to do, this corporate event for one of their bigger events at the gala thing, and we want you to do 30 minutes. I'm like, yeah, I can do 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I had 2 weeks to sort of write down my set, and I went to, my boss, who was like the VP of the company, in a room with the head of like the dentistry committee of Dubai.
Yeah.
And in the same meeting rooms where we used to discuss like corporate stuff, I'm standing there going, all right, so here's the thing about dentists, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, that's funny. Just we'll give you a shot, and that's how it started.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what made me stick to it. I went on stage and I was so nervous. And I did 30 minutes. I was so nervous I could not hear what the audience was doing. I could only hear all the voices in my head.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm getting off stage, and my brother comes up to me. It's just, outdoor by the beach stuff. And there's 800 people. And my brother comes up to me, and he's like, that was great. Now, my brother never says something just to say it. He's one of those honest, but he's not mean, he's honest.
Okay.
So I'm like, you don't start today. I know that was bad. So I come around the stage, and all these people are coming and talking to me from all around the world. This woman from London said, oh my God, you should come and perform in London. And I just did my very first show. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then this one woman came to me and said, it's been a very difficult month for me. I went through a divorce. There was death in my family. This is the first time I laughed in a month.
Wow.
And then when she said that, I'm like, hang on a second. Because when I got off stage, I'm like, I'm never going to do this again.
Yeah.
But then when she spoke to me, a total stranger,
Yeah.
said that to me, I was like, wait, there's impact in this. This is powerful.
Yeah.
Maybe I should give this another shot. Or this is what I want to do, right?
Yeah.
Prior to this, and the reason why people don't believe me, I'm the quiet guy in a group. I'm not the one who would talk. Now you can't shut me up. But pre-comedy.
Can I speak?
No,
May I?
no.
May I?
It's
Please?
my podcast now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm dressed in blue.
Any questions for me?
Yes. Why are you still here?
Oh, yeah. Good question. But that's really amazing, because you've discovered in that very specific moment that comedy is actually therapy. By that woman telling you that, I've been going through so much and you just made me laugh.
So
that's something.
I'm going to tell you what I tell my comedy students. And I hope people in the audience always remember that as well. Because if they look for it as an alternative, then it becomes problematic. Comedy is therapeutic. It's not therapy.
Yeah, therapeutic. Maybe I
Right?
chose the wrong word. Yeah,
No, it's not that.
therapeutic.
But a lot of people think that because, because there's escapism, right? So we go and watch a show and we're like, this is amazing. Or we go and watch a movie or we binge watch a TV show. Like a lot of people, like Friends came out in 1994.
Yeah.
It hasn't been on the air since 2004. And there's teenagers today discovering and watching it.
Yeah.
The reason is this show gives you the illusion of friendship, right? So what you do is you latch on to these 5 or 6 strangers
Yeah.
that you think, oh, this is the ideal friendship that I want.
Yeah.
And what happens, and I've seen this and I've experienced this personally, where then you start giving up on the outside world.
Mm.
I'm not saying don't come to comedy. Please do. I wouldn't have a job
Yeah, no,
if you
I
don't.
always do. I love
But at the same time, don't give up on you as a project. Keep going out there. It might feel like therapy, but it's not. If you feel like you need therapy, get actual therapy.
Yeah. No, no, it's amazing. I agree, and I am with you 100%. And for me, it is therapeutic. Yeah, like if I wanna change my mood, like the easiest way probably for me to change my mood is to watch something that is comic or comedy related, right?
Right.
And I'm that person who likes to go and sit in the front seat so that I be picked on, because I'm like, yeah, give it to me, because it makes me feel, and in one way, people who go and are that center of attention, and because this is a podcast related to how you discover things about yourself and how you develop yourself, I find it very interesting. Like, for me, the reason why I would be wanting to sit there in that place is because I want to be seen and I want to be heard. And a lot of people go through life without being seen, without being heard, especially from the closest people to them, from their parents, from their friends, from their teachers, especially in our culture. So it's important, like, when we do this kind of exposure, when we expose ourselves, even as audiences, it's fun. Like, even if I'm not sitting in the front seat, if I go and watch Ali on stage, and Ali asks a question, I'd be the one in the back going like, hey, ask me. I want to give you the answer, because I want to be that person. I want to be heard. How much does that help you as a comedian when you have people like this kind of people in the audience?
I'll tell you what I discovered, right? Because I'm the type of comedian that talks to people.
Yeah.
I'll do the majority of my shows in the last couple of years have been that. And I noticed a couple of things. I noticed the first thing is the number one question that people have a hard time answering is, what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
Right? It's
Yeah.
like, what do you do? What's your job? And because I think it's platformed and they're in front of these strangers, they're not fully proud almost of what they're saying. Even if they have a great job. Not
Yeah.
everybody's, is going to be like, I'm a management consultant.
Yeah.
So I feel like we have this, like, a lot of people who they feel like they're in the wrong space,
Place.
right? On the flip side, when you ask them questions about life and who they are and whatever, they talk a lot and they will give you so much information almost without even trying. And I find that fascinating. I'm like, hang on a second. I think a lot of people don't get asked questions about themselves, just in general.
Yeah.
By nature, I'm just a very curious person. I want to know everything about you. I want to know how you, how you talk, where you grew up, like what you're doing, who you're with, what your plans are, what your dreams are. I'm so curious because humans fascinate me.
Yeah.
How people feel, how people think fascinates me. Cultures fascinate me. This is like, people ask me like why I'm good at accents, for example. It's that.
Yeah.
I
You
listen,
are quite good.
because I listen to people. For me, an accent, every accent has a melody. I hear it like a song. I never sit and practice an accent. I never have.
That's very interesting.
I just, like the other day, I discovered I can do a great Johannesburg accent. Don't ask me to do it. But there was somebody in the audience who was from Johannesburg who had seen me perform there years ago. and I just started speaking in a Johannesburg accent.
That's funny.
I'm
I
like,
like that.
I called it out. I'm like, I had no idea I can do this. It's only because I have this weird love for strangers, right? This like, I need to know about you. That makes people talk to me, and they'll tell me things because I film all these shows, and sometimes my producers will show me some of the footage. Like, can we post this? I'm like, I don't know. That feels too personal.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. I think a lot of times, people are talked at
Yeah. They're not given the opportunity to talk.
to talk.
Yeah. And I think this is and I truly believe maybe this is the reason why comedy is therapeutic, because there is this connection that happens between you on stage and people in the audience. Because this doesn't happen in any other form of theater, if we want to talk about theater, or in movies, or in any kind of like even in the sitcoms. People, when they go to watch sitcoms, they have a comedian start the show before the sitcom even starts, so that people are already in that space where they can laugh at anything, basically.
They're warmed up.
Right? They're warmed up. So, and that person, that comedian who starts the show for them is actually talking to them, not at them. And that's the difference, when you talk to people rather than at people.
Can I tell you why? Can I tell you why?
Go.
Okay, comedy is imperfect, right? We as people wake up every day and we try our best to get to perfection.
Yeah.
The levels of that are going to change based on people's ability,
Yeah.
right? Some people are great at doing hair,
Yeah.
so their hair is going to be on point. Some people are going to focus on their necktie. Some people are going to focus on their dress, right? Whatever you can choose in terms of expression to portray perfection is what you're going to do. And you're taught that from a very young age,
Yeah.
especially women,
Yeah.
especially Arab women.
Yeah.
You must be perfect
Yeah.
because people have eyes and opinions, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Actually, that's your problem,
Yeah.
right? So you strive for that, right? And I'm glad you mentioned sitcoms. That's the flaw in sitcoms. That's why sitcoms died, except for Friends.
Yeah.
Sitcoms are selling perfection,
Yeah. Yeah.
ideal family,
Yeah.
the best situation. There's always a happy ending.
Yeah.
Right? That does not exist in real life.
Yeah.
So the reason stand-up comedians, and there's tens of thousands of stand-up comedians right now, not many good, and I'll prove it to you in a second. But the reason it's just happening everywhere is because you can look at somebody, talk about how everything is going wrong, and go, "Whew, thank God it's not just me."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're laughing at it, and you're
Yeah.
laughing at disaster. That's all you're laughing at.
Yeah.
Nothing positive is funny,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Comedy's in the negative,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So when you do that, bam. And having this huge variety of comedians from all over the world is amazing. It's fantastic. But I don't care who you are. If I ask you who your favorite comedians are, you're going to struggle to get to 10. Right? And the reason is not the comedians.
Yeah.
The reason is comedy is subjective.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
It is.
So your chaos, it depends on who matches it.
Yeah,
right?
do I relate to it? Does it resonate with me or not?
Exactly.
Is he speaking, like for me, when I watch comedy, I have so many comedians that I like, and I love stand-up comedy, by the way. I'm like someone who if you go to my Instagram, you'd see that I follow a lot of stand-up comedians, and many of them at any given point in time, they would make me laugh because I relate. And sometimes they don't because I don't relate to that
Right.
very specific joke or that very specific comment. It means nothing to me, you know? And here I have a question for you, actually. Why did you choose to be a stand-up comedian in English, although you are Emirati, right? You are Arab. You are that person who can speak our language. So why did you choose that, no, I'm going to do this in English?
I actually perform in two languages. I perform in English and I perform in Arabic.
Okay.
Um,
I've
we-
never seen you perform in Arabic, so that's a bad on me.
it is very different in terms of energy, and I've been told that a lot.
Okay.
From the very beginning, it's a different approach to it. Also, the thing about English, there is a universality to it that as Arabs we have lost, which is I'm going to laugh at my stuff. I'm not going to find what you're saying funny. And the first thing that's going to turn me off is the dialect.
As
Right.
Arabic, you mean?
As Arabic. So people are very selective. I mean, we all have selective hearing.
Yeah.
So when it comes to comedy, it's that. I'll do like a variety of comedians in my Arabic shows. I have a Tunisian person, I have Lebanese people, Syrian, Egyptian, and you just see certain communities turn off when their guy is not on, turn back on when their guy is on.
Yeah, I
And
get you.
My goal was always to have a universality of performing in Arabic to the point where people listen. And what I learned through this is it's not the dialect, it's not the language, it's the tone.
Explain.
Right? So
Please.
if you approach somebody with the right tone, you can have their attention and you can keep their attention. I have said some ludicrous things on stage.
Yeah.
2 people.
Yeah.
They laugh, they'll come after the show, take a photo with me.
Yeah.
A few weeks later, they might hire me for their company event,
Yeah.
right? But other people who have said less will get in trouble. So when you establish the game, right, there's context to everything,
Yeah.
right?
True.
When you establish what this is, what this relationship is, and people become willing participants, then you go, okay, we understand what's happening.
Yeah.
So we're going to have that kind of vibrance, let's say,
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And this is what I think the biggest lesson, perhaps, that I get from comedy is to be able to look at somebody and really try to understand where they're at, right? I'm getting really good at guessing, like, I can look at somebody and guess a lot of things about them just by their presence, their body language, who they're with, what they're wearing. And if we can all just really study each other like that and give
Yeah.
each other that chance,
Yeah.
people are willing participants
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah.
They just don't know it. There
Yeah.
are some people, there's some cultures, I'm not going to say which, there's like, oh, yeah, it's hard to make us laugh. It's impossible. You can try. I'm like, I will make you laugh.
Yeah.
But what I don't like is your arrogance. The
Yeah.
other thing about performing in Arabic, or just being Arab in general, is we will not accept jokes from each other. I have a couple of jokes online. I've been doing them for years on stage. Never had a complaint. It goes online, and my goodness, what happened? I got death threats, and I'm
Wow.
posting the easy things.
Yeah.
I have people cursing me and my family out. I have people attacking. I have people praying that something bad happens to me. And I'm sitting there going, right, but if I had a different skin tone,
Yeah.
you would be sharing this
Yeah.
and you'd be like, American guy talks about X,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I see where you're going
The-
with this. It's so true.
There's a huge double standard that we have,
It's very unfortunate. It's
right?
very unfortunate.
But against
it's
each
true.
other.
Yeah. I mean, I'm Lebanese, right? And we are very famous for being funny people, especially when disaster hits. You know, I mean,
Right.
right now we're going through a lot of hassle, and the situation is very, very bad. Give us a couple of days and you will see jokes going viral about the whole situation that we're in. And this is, for me, this is one of the things that I call resilience in our people, really, because they can make a joke out of situations that are very, very heartbreaking, to say the least, you know, if we want to talk about that. But it's so true that we do have this double standard, because today we are happy to joke about our misery, but if someone else does it, we're gonna be very, very harsh to that person. But if we do it to ourselves, it's okay.
Right. I mean, it's not also just ourselves. Ourselves I can accept, but it is the opposite side. So when you'll have an American comedian or a British comedian or a French comedian get up and talk about Arab cultures, we are proud of the association. That look, they know about us. Like, why are we still saying, you know, Salma Hayek is Lebanese, she's Arab, you know that? Did you know Steve Jobs is originally Syrian, but his parents, you know, give him up for adoption? Why are we doing that? Why are we trying to associate? You know, in the same way, like, oh, did you know Andrew Tate became Muslim? Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's this, like, why do we feel the privilege when somebody else is acknowledging us,
Yeah.
as opposed to being in this space where we can be one, you know?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something about the Lebanese people from a comedian's perspective. First of all, greatest audience in the world, the most loyal. I've seen them go to shows to see a comedian that they don't like. But they're like, oh, but he's Lebanese.
Yeah.
I gotta support them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's that kind of love is insane to me. So when the explosion happened years ago at the port in Beirut, right? I was doing a show at the Lebanese pub in Dubai, and we literally found out it was me and the promoter who is Lebanese. And so we're walking from the parking and we just happened to like walk together, and he had just found out and he showed me the video. And we're both devastated, and it's about a 5-minute walk to the bar. So I'm like, all right, I guess we cancel the show. And he said, no, bro, we're not canceling the show. And my audience was 99% Lebanese.
Lebanese.
During the show, there will be people who will get up, go outside to take a phone call from a family member, find out they're okay, come back in tears, and I can see them mouthing to each other, hey, they're fine, they're okay, and sit down and do the show. And I'm sitting here and looking at these people. I'm like, I have canceled shows for a lot less.
Yeah.
I have, diverted to other things for a lot less. But you're sitting here going, you're not gonna break me.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit here. I had made plans,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm still thinking about my family. I still worry about their safety.
Yeah.
It is a hard day. It's a hard week, but I've seen hard days and I've seen hard weeks, and I know we come out of it stronger.
Yeah.
And that is something that you don't really see in many people. And the Lebanese people are very special for that. Palestinians as well.
Yeah.
Very, very special for that, to say, my strength is not attached to whatever you're doing to bring me down.
Yeah.
My strength is attached to the fact that I know that I will resist, that
Yeah.
I will be resilient.
Yeah.
And that is something to admire.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. And it's very interesting that we're talking about this, because I had a completely separate episode for resilience, and this never came through. And you know, in what I do, a lot of the messages that I put out there are messages that I receive myself, that, hey, you should talk about this because this is important. And right now I believe and I feel that this is important for everyone to hear, that, you know, no matter what we go through in life, and I've learned this maybe the hard way, and my job is to try and help people to learn this the easy way, instead of them having to go through the same hardships that I went through. Maybe, just maybe, I can pave the way with an easier path for them to go through, rather than go through the same hardships, or maybe even worse hardships than I have been through, to discover at the end that really everything that they can be is within them. It's not something that they will get from any outside force or any outside authority. It's really something that you are born with. Like, your resilience is something that you have within you. You either discover it or you don't. Your love, your joy, your happiness, your gratitude, your even fame, your abundance is something that you are born with. And then what happens is, when we go through life and we have this society that is conditioning us in a very specific way, our parents who are conditioning us in a very specific way because they've been conditioned in a very specific way. It's not because they want to, it's because they don't know any other way, because that's what they know. And I always say, like, even today, when I look at my relationships with my parents, and I have a very weird relationships with my parents, I think I always say, you know what? They did the best that they could with what they had, with what they knew. If they had known better, they would have done things better, right? And that's what I try to do. And I believe comedy helps in the same way, you know, by showing that there is a better way. There is a funnier way. There is, like, instead of you looking at yourself and becoming dramatic for what is happening to you in your life, maybe if you just change the picture, or if you just change that story and look at yourself from a comedian's perspective, you know? And like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, I've seen this movie before, and I know how it ends. Why am I just being so melodramatic about it? Because I know at the very end of this movie, I'm going to be standing on my feet, I'm going to be defying all the odds, and I'm going to be okay. You know, but not so many people can do that.
Right, because we have this survivor mentality. So the way, and you mentioned like parents, and the way they were brought up, and the way their parents were brought up, and how it trickled down for us is you will be given what you're going to use, right? So it's this factory sort of upbringing. So you will be given this thing, and then you're going to be able to use it in life. For example, seeking something outside of what you're given is then weird, or you know, sometimes aib or haram or whatever it is, right? So you look at people who are constantly afraid of seeking something else. So everything we're getting is external, whether it is at home, at school, at work. You're never being told by anybody, by the way, you're enough. Just you, by you, you are enough. And in the same thing with, you know, you mentioned comedy, this is the danger of it, is if you come to a comedy show and I give you laughs, then you leave saying, I'm healed, right? No, you have to go and seek,
Yeah.
right? It's like, what's a popular saying? If you think of, by the way, all our popular sayings, they're problematic, right? But what's a popular saying that we have? If somebody just gives me $1 million, all my problems will be fixed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Why does somebody have to give you anything?
Yeah.
You have the tools to do it.
Yeah.
But you were just never prepped for that.
Yeah. Nobody
Right.
ever gave you that
Not at all.
knowledge, that know-how, that, you have everything within you.
Right.
All you need to do is just to figure it out and discover it.
This was, almost forced onto me. That all the circumstances failed for a lot of different things that I was able to discover comedy. We can look at it that way, right? Because people say, oh, you're so lucky that this happened to you, for example. And they say it about so many different people and so many different things. Let's say that I was privileged and this fell in front of me. What I learned from comedy is, and I was telling you that I was a completely different experience prior to comedy. The way I talk, the way I think, the way I communicate, the way I walk, the way I consider things has completely changed. And what I discovered is that I needed a language for expression. Comedy is my language. I know how to express everything through comedy.
Yeah.
I know how to express frustration, happiness, nervousness, whatever it is. I can communicate it through my chosen language. This is how, when my dad passed away, 2 days later, I was on a stage doing jokes about him because that's how I know how to express.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is, I guess, what I want for everybody to do is to find their language.
Their way of expression.
Get out there and find what is the natural way for you to express. Whenever someone comes to me and says, I want to do comedy, whatever, I'm like, please, give me everything you got because this will change your entire being. Right? All you have to do is go, I want to do this and be passionate enough. I have a close friend of mine who did everything. And I always made a joke about him. I'd be like, hey, every couple months you're like, this doesn't hurt enough anymore. Let me do something that hurts more. So he'll be like into boxing, into MMA, into Martial, whatever. And he just kept changing and shifting and changing and whatever. And then he got a bike, and then he sold the bike and bought a car, and he's doing all this stuff. And then he found skydiving. And he changed.
From that.
From everything about him, his comfort level, right? The way he spoke about it. We'd sit down for 2 hours and he would talk about skydiving in the most technical forms possible. And I will just sit there and just be excited at how at home he feels.
So
right?
that was his language.
That was his language. What is yours? Go out there. It's out there, right? You don't have to. And there's so many different things that, and this is, again, what I like to talk about in my comedy classes is, there's layers. Since you were a tiny little thing, you have been programmed and taught to put on different masks.
True.
Even when we're talking about the baby, right? Even when you're trying to understand what gets your parents' attention.
Yeah, of course.
You're like, if I do this, then they carry me, they tickle me, they give me hugs, they give me something that feels nice. So I'm going to always do this. First mask. Then you go to nursery, second mask. Then you go out to the playground, mask, 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 mask. And then you come to this, adulthood, and you're, maybe in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. Whenever this starts hitting you, you're sitting there going, why am I not who I always said I was going to be? It's because your face is heavy.
From all those masks.
All those masks. And
Yeah.
you can't take them all off at once.
Yeah.
You got to take them, peel them one at a time
Yeah.
until you get there. And you were talking about comfort before. And I have this philosophy that I want to introduce, which is called slight discomfort. And the idea behind it is that you're going to achieve nothing in total comfort.
True.
But all you're doing is chasing total comfort. Right? But what you got to do is you have to make sure you're not completely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's a no-no.
Yeah.
But you want to make sure that you're slightly uncomfortable. There's always slight discomfort so that you can move yourself to better yourself and your situation and the situation of those around you.
Yeah.
That is the only place that's going to work. I learned that from comedy. Right?
I think everybody who goes on stage knows that because, and I know it because I've been on stage, and I know it because I've studied this as part of my studies, and it's always very, like that very single minute or 5 minutes or 2 minutes or maybe 30 seconds right before you go on stage. There's always this sweet fear, I like to call it, right? It's that fear that keeps you on your toes, that, hey, don't be arrogant when you go on stage. Because even you, no matter how good you are, you know, you could falter. You could, you know, that sweet fear is what keeps anyone who goes on stage able to master whatever they are doing when they go on stage. Even myself, behind this mic, there's no audience right now. There's nobody live listening to us. But every time I'm about to start this, I have this fear, and it's only human, and it's the right thing to have. If we don't have it, that's our ego taking, you know, control and becoming like, I'm going to do this. What?
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit.
Tell me.
And what you said works for a lot of people. I have zero fear or any feelings of nerves or anxiety, whatever, before going on stage. And the reason is stage is the most, it's the most comfortable place for me on earth.
Okay.
I'm uncomfortable off it.
Okay. So this is more uncomfortable for you than being on stage?
Incredibly.
Wow. Okay.
So when I'm on stage, I feel like this is where I need to be. It's hard for me. It's hard for you to get me off stage. You have to peel me off stage.
I remember.
Yeah, it's like, let's go. I have time blindness, especially on stage.
I know.
So when I'm up there, like sometimes, I think it's one time I was up for like 3.5 or 4 hours, and I'll even joke sometimes with the audience if I feel like it's gone too long. I said, I'm just gonna stay here till all of you leave.
Yeah. because you're comfortable.
Right. And then sometimes I'll be like, so like, should we end this? And the audience will be like, no, stay. You know, let's see like how far you're gonna spiral.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you, and I think in which point, which is I have caught myself being ungrateful on stage. Where I'm like, I don't want to do this. We're doing the show in this venue, and there's, you know, the seating is weird and whatever. And I'll catch myself while I'm on stage. I'm like, you idiot.
Is that your ego saying, I don't want to do this?
That is, I think it's a combination of ego and just, I'll tell you something someone told me, like, when I first started. And it really, it helps me as a marker a lot. I catch myself sometimes with it. They said, don't believe the hype. And that means something different to me depending on the time.
Okay.
Right? Because you can be like at this huge stage or with your idol, like your best comedian or, you know, favorite comic, and having this, or, you know, you're at this huge industry thing and you're getting all these compliments and you're getting noticed or whatever. You can't carry that with you to your next show.
Yeah.
Carry the success for sure, but you can't carry that I made it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
You have to make it every single
you
time.
have to make it every single time. And there's a saying in theater, which is you're only as good as your last show,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
It's also in cooking, by the way.
Right.
You're only as good as your last meal.
Right.
You know, whatever you
Absolutely.
prepare.
Absolutely.
So if you're the best chef in the world and you did something amazing now, and then the next cook could be a disaster.
Right.
And
You hear that,
then
Gordon Ramsay?
You're bad.
You hear that? I'm sure people have returned. I've heard like he returns or turns down customers who ask for like ketchup or something.
Yeah. Well,
You're Lebanese. You grew up
yeah.
on ketchup.
I don't like ketchup. You're talking to the
Really?
wrong Lebanese here.
You guys love ketchup on everything, on pizza.
Yeah, my dad would be like, yeah, let's have ketchup everywhere.
On everything.
I'm not that person. Although I'm very Lebanese. But yeah, I mean, you are as good as your last show. And but the funny thing is, I don't believe this applies when one show is bad. Like, I cannot say you are as bad as your last show.
Okay, there's that self-accountability. So you cannot, absolutely cannot accept that this show is going to be a disaster until the end of it. So if you go up on stage and you're not doing well, it is your responsibility to bring it up. And the reason for that is the audience has no choice but to laugh. They have absolutely no choice. And you want to go up there and be that person, have that fighter mentality. And you will not get off stage until you get a huge laugh and a cheer. And that's just how it is. Right? If you're new to the business or whatever, again, sometimes even if you're a veteran, you'll be like, you'll catch yourself being ungrateful on stage. Like, you know what, I don't need this. I don't need you guys. Boom. You'll hear famous comedians that happens to, where they be like, you know what, I don't care about this. I'm leaving. And they're like, we have to refund everybody. It's like, all right, refund them. I'll pay them double. I don't care. Right? But when you're on stage as a practitioner of comedy, you have to. You have no choice. And they have no choice. But to produce laughter.
What's the toughest audience you've got ever?
No such thing.
Never.
No such thing.
I love that. Do you prefer a smaller audience or a big audience?
So it depends. So the best shows are the smaller ones. The big ones have a very different feel and vibe to them, but the smaller ones are the ones you remember. One of my favorite shows was in 2009 or 2010. I was, still fresh, 2 years into the game. I went to Lebanon to film something, and there was a club called Mono Comedy Club. And it was a tiny place, and it packed up based on curiosity only.
Yeah.
Like, who is this Dubai comedian
Yeah.
that's gonna
Make
be
us laugh.
funny? It's not a thing,
Yeah.
And the host Emirati, he's like, he's like a comedic actor and a dramatic actor.
Yeah.
He was hosting, and he goes up and he completely roasts me. He doesn't know me as well. He's like, because first time we met, he's like, do you want to drink anything? I'm like, yeah. Do you have tea? And he's like, "Hey, jay min Dubai, shu tea?" He's like, I thought you were gonna ask for this and that, whatever. So the whole audience is just sitting there going, "There's no way. There's no way."
We're gonna laugh.
Right. And this is one of my favorite shows. It was like 75 people in this tiny room, and it was sardines.
Yeah.
And everybody, like, it was so small. Like, on my way off stage, there was a girl, like a tiny girl sitting on a stool, and I knocked her off the stool coming off stage. It was so tiny and tight.
Yeah.
That'll always be one of my favorite shows. So the smaller shows have a very nice flavor to them, but when you're doing the big shows, obviously when you're making thousands of people laugh at the same time, that energy, that electricity is very different. You know, the best shows that you do, you feel them in your spine. It's a very weird physical reaction, but
like that.
I feel the laughter just go up my spine, and I'm like, whoa, there's some electricity happening in my
Yeah,
body.
it is very electrical, actually. It is. And the one thing I want to ask as well is, how difficult is it for a comedian to actually improvise? You know, because most of your shows and a lot of comedians, they start their shows with the improvisation part. And then they move to their set, which is already prepared, and they go through that. But personally, I love the improvised part. For me, I would pay bucks to sit in the front and just be picked on with that improvisation. But how difficult is it for a comedian to do that part?
So the majority of my shows now are that we call it crowd work, and it's improvised in the moment. Even when I'm doing a set, I realized that I'm incapable of writing. This was in my 15th year of doing comedy, so in 2023. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why am I broken? So I went and I got a diagnosis. I'm like, you know, ADHD and all that stuff. And I tried my best to write a show and I couldn't. So I will have an idea of what I want to talk about, and then I'll improvise that on stage.
I love that.
It is very risky,
I know.
but when you accept that that's what you are, then it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
When it comes to crowd work, it depends on the comedian. I don't think it's difficult. But I think what's masterful about crowd work is not looking at somebody and deciding what you're going to say.
And just go with the flow.
You have to accept what they're saying. And after a while, when you do comedy for a while, you know your rhythm. You know your comedic timing. So, and the way I like to describe it is, it's almost like, again, it's a dialect, right? All the grammatic rules don't really, you know, fit into your comedic rhythm.
Yeah.
So when you're talking to somebody, you're able to just almost write a joke live. This is like live joke writing.
Yeah.
So that's why it falls into place, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And every comic knows their strength, and they subconsciously follow it. So for me personally, a lot of times I'll find out with you what I said. Because I'll say it, and then I'm like, all right, I have to deal with the consequences of what I just said.
Yeah.
Right? And it's one of those things where I'm chasing, my brain is working faster only because, and your body follows, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm about to do, like, I was watching this video yesterday from a show I did recently where I was doing this whole Japanese thing, right? And based on somebody in the audience, and I get into this whole act out of Japanese, my whole body is like into it. And I'm like, hang on a second, like, I don't think I fully realized what I was doing until after I did it.
Yeah.
So with time, it's muscle memory.
I love that. And I'm going to connect this to self-awareness and really how much we go through in developing ourselves. Whether we're doing it consciously or subconsciously is a different story. But in this very specific case, because I've seen you on stage and I've seen how you move and how you have to, like, I can see in your eyes that, hey, I got to remember what I just started this with so that this stays in a very, like, logical flow and it makes sense and it's funny at the same time, and that I'm not jumping from one thing to something completely different that's completely disconnected, where people would lose track and they would go like, what just happened? You know? Although what just happened is always what the audience is going to say in their mind, like, how did we even get here? But I see it in the comedian's eyes most of the time that they know how they got there. Is that true?
So it depends on the comedian. So there are some people who need to know everything they're going to say, when they're going to say it. They practice all that stuff. I don't. I'm not capable of that. So that is not my strength. My strength is everything I do is not conscious. It's subconscious. And you gotta trust your subconscious. It knows a lot more than you do.
Oh, yes, it does. Definitely.
Right? And it's carrying all these things. Like, I'll surprise myself. Like, I was talking to a couple from Luxembourg for 25 minutes at a show. And after the show, I'm like, why do I know so much about Luxembourg? I read articles years ago, I guess, and my brain is like...
Yeah, because it's memorized in your subconscious mind and you don't even know it. Yeah.
And the best thing I can describe it, and I really hope people do it generally. The best way I can describe it is comedy is water. It flows. It cannot take a shape unless you force it to in a confined space.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it is water. It flows. If you're able to wake up at least once a week to start with and say, I'm going to react to this day just to see what my spirit wants to do, what my heart wants to do, what my mind wants to do, and what my body wants to do. And you just examine and observe yourself and be like, hey, hang on a second. There's comfort in this. Like, I do so much better in chaos than I do when things are calm. That I almost look for chaos just to feel that normalcy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I can use words and wit to alter any situation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That I was telling you earlier, because I was late. I'm never late. I hate being late.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But when it happens, I'm able to change it.
Yeah.
And say, okay, I made a mistake, but guess what? I'm going to make this worth your while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Whatever this is. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I was
Yeah, yeah,
amazing at this podcast. I'm just saying in
you
general.
are amazing in this podcast.
You know what I mean? But in general, it's that presence, it's that ability to be authentic that will change everything. Because authentic is always amazing.
Yeah, I totally
Unless
agree.
you're a serial killer.
It has to be funny one way or another. That's so true. And I love, and many people do actually excel under pressure, living in this part of the world, I think, I don't like generalizing, but most of the people excel under pressure because that's how this part of the world works.
Right.
It works under pressure.
It was brought
And
up
everything
under
is like,
pressure.
yalla, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. You got to be the best. You got to have the highest grades. You got to be, well-spoken. You should be good to the elderly. I mean, there are so many shoulds in our society, in our culture, that we are prone to do better under stress and under a lot of chaos, if you wish. But my message to my audience is that we can do so much, even if we're not under a lot of pressure. Actually, we can do maybe a lot better if we're not under pressure, unless this is the way we like to do things.
Right.
Like in your case, you like it, you enjoy it. It makes you thrive from within, and you know that. It's not like you're doing it unknowingly and you don't understand what's happening there. You're very aware of where you are and how good you are when you are in this state. Other people, many people, don't really know why things happen the way they happen in their life. And there's always this, why is this happening? Why? I'm doing everything right. And they don't even know that what they're doing is not actually right. Maybe it's right in the general scheme of things, but it's not right for them, And because I can see Gibran going like, you
time
have
over."
to finish. You have to finish now. I love having you here. And this is the last episode in season 2. And it's funny that it is the last episode in season 2 because it's giving me a completely new direction for season 3, and I am going to do season 3 of this podcast.
No, I'm taking over the podcast.
Okay.
This is the last episode for you.
Okay.
But make sure you catch me on
Yes.
season 3 completely.
Okay.
She will not be a guest, don't worry.
Okay.
And, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Tinder, all of that stuff.
Tinder? You're not on Tinder.
I'm not on Tinder, but they don't know that. Let
I
them-
know that.
Well, I'm on Bumble.
I just canceled my subscription. Yes.
On Tinder?
Not because I found anyone, but because I found it worthless.
You found no one.
Yes. I feel that having you in the very last episode of season 3 is there's a reason for that to happen. I mean, I only saw you last week. We had this event together. You were on stage. And I'm like, Ali, do you mind if I host you in my podcast? And first thing you were like, yes, definitely. And then 2 days later, you're like, who are you? What are you talking about? What podcast? I don't know.
It's because you bullied me. And you didn't say, do you mind? You said, you are coming on the... I'm like, all right, I'll come.
Is that what?
No, I
was that
didn't.
my
No, you're very
approach?
sweet.
I
You're very
could
sweet
be.
in
I
real
could be
life.
that person, by the
You
way.
helped me find my lost clothes.
Did they get them for you?
No, I have to call the guy.
Okay. I'll
Yeah.
call him for you tomorrow.
Oh, see, you know what I mean? This was meant to be.
Yeah, I think it was meant to be, and I have this amazing idea. I'll tell you about it later. But yeah, I think season 3 is going to be a completely different approach to how, because again, I mean, part of what I do is I try to lay it flat to people that really everything that they go through in their life is their choice. It is something that they decide on. It's not like nobody put, I don't think anyone put a gun to your head and told you, hey, you're going to be a comedian, right? No?
There was some knives involved.
Maybe you did that though.
No, it
You-
just
no.
happened.
No, there were
Yeah.
some knives involved. You're not doing it. I will kill you if you do it. I think
No,
that
but
was the
it's,
knives.
you're absolutely right. That you're not gonna be forced to do something. But if it presents itself,
Yeah.
and if you don't take it, then you're the only loser.
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody to blame but yourself, right? No matter whether you take that path or the other path, at the end of the day, you have the choice. And no one is there to take that choice from you. It's even if you choose to follow, let's say, your parents' advice, it's your choice. Like I had so many advices in my life, and I chose to follow some of them, and I chose not to follow the others.
I mean, some people, they're
Yeah.
in situations where they can't, and we understand.
Yeah.
But it's, like I tried to say before, I think it's one mask at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
Until you're comfortable with the face that you're presenting.
Exactly. Thank you so much for really being here. I really love it, and I enjoyed every second of it. No matter how late you were, you made it for me.
See, you say that
You made it on
passive-aggressively
time.
every single time.
No, and you said, listen, just send me the questions. I'll voice note you the answer. I mean, how funny is that?
I was trying to find solutions.
No, see, you were funny.
Thank you. I tried.
Thank you so much for being here with me. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are. And there's a comeback. This is not the last you're going to see of me.
We'll see. Speak to my manager.
Yeah, I am speaking to your manager. You are your manager. We were just
You
talking
are your
about
boss,
this.
yes.
Yeah, you are your boss.
That's right.
Ali, any other thoughts that you might have for the audience? And I want to tell them, guys, Ali is on Instagram, Ali Sayed. You have to follow him. I mean, no, actually, you have the choice not to, but we were just
You have
talking
no
about-
choice.
We were just talking about
Follow him.
that. Follow him. I mean, you will not regret it, I promise. And then whenever he has a show, I promise you, if you go, you will enjoy it, you will love it. So just do that. And if you have any last words for these kind people.
Yeah. Stop listening to this podcast until they instate me as the host. No, listen. Be you as much as you can be. And it sounds like a cliche. It sounds weird. It sounds all of that. But for real, try to find out who you are in that whatever. Just get it. That was horrible. I'm not going to just cut it.
Yeah, no, we're not going to cut it. It was really good.
It was horrible.
It was good.
I was not being me.
You were being you. You were being exactly who you are.
That's truth. That's true. I was thinking of the joke.
Yeah.
And then...
But then we know that jokes, you don't come prepared. They just
no,
go with the flow.
what happened was I was going to try and be authentic, but I wasn't authentic.
Aww.
But cut it.
You're going to make me cry.
We're not going to do the ending. There's
Okay.
no last minute. There's
No,
no
no.
last words for you.
Okay.
What have you done for me?
Oh my God. We have the best promo for this episode. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.